Hello YouTube viewers, welcome to my show Science Thursday. In today's episode we're going to take a look at biomass power plant. So let's dive right into it. First thing, you have to understand what it is. It's very simple. It's basically burning wood and organic materials and using that heat that is given off by burning these things into a thermal power plant. Basically, it's coal power plant with less steps and it's carbon neutral, because if you release carbon dioxide by burning wood or things like that, the next crop of trees or next generation of forest will absorb it. So basically, you are running on solar power, but you are doing it so quickly that it's not like you are adding extra carbon to the atmosphere. Basically, the carbon dioxide that was trapped into the wood, you simply burnt it, it was released, next generation, like basically your next crop absorbed it again, and then the cycle continues. So it's carbon neutral in principle. So why do we have so much interest in it? First, it's very simple. It's not a new technology. It does not require to you have silicon industry technology or inverters or anything. It's very simple. It's basically coal with less step. Now, many of you know coal is solar power, but only difference is that coal, the carbon trapped into the coal is done in such a way that is removed from the ecosystem. Basically, ecosystem does not have to worry about that carbon. We are dugging it out, so we are adding carbon that is into the atmosphere that is not meant to be there. This, on the other hand, plants are meant to be there. Plants like do burn out in like a forest fire basically. So in those sort of scenario, you are just planting trees, cutting them down, burning them for power, then planting another tree that will absorb the CO2 from that emission, from the first emission, and then the cycle continues. Basically, it's like coal without you have to worry about like waiting millions and millions and millions of years. And you can simply run this whole idea through any existing infrastructure. Basically, all our coal-fired power plant will work with this. So this is very crucial. It's very simple, no magic mumbo jumbo, and it's basically like coal. It has the benefit of coal. Basically, it can provide base load power and things of that nature. So this is why we have so much interest into this. So how does it work? Well, very simple. We burn it, but be mindful, there may be two sort of structures that are generally common. Either you burn wood like this, like you break them down into chips and then burn it, or sometimes you use something like this, of course big industrial scale, basically where you convert that into wood gas. Now it has some percent of methane, some percent of carbon monoxide, some percent of nitrogen, and burning them gives you power. So each of these steps have their own pros and cons. Like burning gas does not give you emission of particulates. Basically, there won't be particles from coming out of it. Burning wood will not give you as high emission of nitrous oxide as this will. So there are pros and cons of both of these. So what are the cons of this whole structure? If it is so simple and it's carbon neutral, why the heck we are not using it? First is a small scale. The reason we can even mine coal, the reason we can even mine LNG, the reason why we can even think about extracting oil, it's the deposit of earth that was done over millions and millions and millions of years. Yearly, earth does not convert enough solar energy into enough hydrocarbons for our humanity's consumption. So that is the reason. Basically, think of it this way: earth started depositing energy into its various formats, like hydrocarbon format, and it was storing it was storing very little amount every day. But humanity comes along, and in last 100 and 150 years we start to extract. Now we are extracting that has been stored for millions of years. So even though every day it was very little amount of energy that was stored, overall the reserve is so big that as of now, you can see, we think oil is so powerful. Why no other system can provide that much power? Simply because we are draining money from a bank account that has been stored, taking interest over millions of years. So that is the core reason. It's very small scale. So even if you start burning hectares and hectares and hectares of forest, you will barely get 10 to 20 megawatts. So for that reason, this is a very small scale system. Second, this has very dangerous emission. As in, there is a link in the paper below. Basically, it's an article from scientist, and it is true, like burning wood is very dangerous. The reason why coal does not give out that kind of emission is simply because when coal was being compacted by earth and being heated by earth, it started to, like, basically it's a sort of purification process where other things seeped out of coal. In wood, that process hasn't happened yet, and if you want to burn wood, you have to make sure that all the exhaust that is coming out of your furnace must go through what's called a gas treatment, basically flue gas treatment. And without it, you are in a scenario where you are polluting much more brutally than basically core burning fire power plant. So it is very crucial you guys understand that the emission from burning wood is not something to be taken lightly. Then of course this also creates another paradox, because even though your old infrastructure remains the same, your exhaust has to be rerouted. Basically your exhaust chamber has to go to flue gas treatment, and this is extra cost. It's not like, instead of burning coal, you started burning wood. That can be done, however the exhaust will be the problem if you do that. So exhaust does require a new level investments for something like this flue gas treatment, and it's only 80% carbon neutral. Now inherently it's 100% carbon neutral, but problem is that trying to transport that carbon, trying to extract that carbon, trying to build this sort of infrastructure, everything combines it, like, takes away from it. So yes, it is carbon neutral in principle, and yes, it does release very little CO2 compared to a coal fire power plant, 80% less, but it is not zero emission. It's not solar panels where, even the carbon footprint of a solar panel, that, like, how much carbon you released into the atmosphere trying to make them, it can be paid off in like 2 years. 2 to 3 years, all modern solar cells basically pay off their carbon debt, and then they become carbon negative basically. So this does not have that, like, clean slate sort of scenario. However, this, I think there is a lot of potential growth in this, simply because this can act as a very good add-on to your green grid. Basically think of it this way: you have solar, as I already made a video about solar power. Solar has reached a point where it's almost reaching price parity. Basic TLDR version of that is that using solar power to make electricity is soon will become cheaper than using coal. So we're gonna use that. But okay, let's say it took care of most of our electrical need during daytime. Everything is awesome. What are you gonna do at night? So at night we can use this sort of thing. So, and it does not provide enough power to, like, run a whole country, but does provide enough power to run, let's say, small communities. And this guy did that in one small remote area in India, and linked into the description below, and I would suggest you watch it. Like, he did nothing fancy, nothing like, big scale. The electricity that he was generating was barely 100 kilowatts, but suffice to say, it's a very good add-on to small communities where, let's say, you have a few megawatt of solar panel. If you are near seaside, you have 1 or 2 megawatt of wave power. I made a video about wave power there also. And if you combine all of these things, and then you add this as a green battery sort of scenario, because this can provide power whenever you want. Basically, let's say you have a scenario where there is no wave, there is no solar, there is no wind, you just burn it, because it is like coal. It behaves exactly like coal, so you can control the output very efficiently. And then you also have to understand, this is my desire, because recently I made a video about plastics. So TLDR version of that is that plastic is the best tool we have. Everything that we use to replace it with, they pollute atmosphere much more severely than plastic itself. Only problem with that is that we forgot to dispose of plastic properly. The only way to dispose of plastic properly is burning it in high temperature. This is crucial aspect. You can't just burn it, like, set fire to plastic, you are polluting the whole atmosphere. But if you burn it at anywhere higher than 800 degrees Celsius, you're good. Now again, that also creates emission, which requires flue gas treatment. Wood also requires that. So you can have 2-in-1 scenario where you can dump all the plastic, burn it safely. So basically you are safely disposing of plastic while getting electricity out of that. You can put wood also there, safely getting electricity out of that. So 2-in-1 benefit. This is my desire, because inherently there is not even a single thing that can replace plastic bags or plastic as we use it, with even like half the carbon footprint. Basically twice the carbon footprint. Basically everything else, like steel bottles or things of other nature, they take like 10 times or 50 times more carbon footprint. So it's inherently very bad. So we have to use plastics. Only thing we have to figure out is like how to dispose of plastic properly, which we can do by just burning it and making sure the exhaust go through flue gas treatment. And this is a very good for small scale communities, as I already mentioned. And the video that I'm talking about is made by United Nations, so suffice to say there is some context to it. You can watch it and be mindful, because this in recent years there has been a fear of carbon tax. So everybody wants to reduce their carbon output, and everybody started mining forest in such a way that it's not sustainable. We have to make sure that we mine forest sustainably, as in like some countries, not countries, I would say some companies started to drill out the wood stock, as in like you cut the tree, there is a stump on the ground, they started to extract that. Problem is that if you do that on a slope, like let's say on slopey environment, you collapse the soil integrity. Basically soil becomes structurally unstable, and if rain happens in that time, you can have landslide. You can remove the entire top layer which has the most nutrition directly. So we have to do better management at this. Without that, it's just we are just we are still reducing our carbon emission, but we are not doing good job of it. And then the soil will become basically infertile, and after a while that will be pointless. So we really have to figure out how to do better management. And we have a lot of industry that uses wood, like wood pellets and things of that nature. And wood is a big industry, as in billions and billions of dollar level industry, and tons and tons and tons of sawdust that can be directly put into this, and voila, electricity out of that. So I do think wood burning for basically biomass power plant will play an important role in our future, but I don't think it's going to take the center stage. I think center stage is still reserved for solar, but this can act as a very good buffer, because grid scale storage, even though I made a video on that, TLDR of that is basically no matter what you do, you can't store gigawatts and gigawatts of electricity. So for that reason, we have to have some intermediate power source. This can provide that. So this was my video on biomass power plant. I hope you liked it or learned from it. In that case, please leave a like. If you didn't, dislike it. I would suggest you comment what you want to see in the next episode of Science Thursday, and please subscribe. If you have watched this far, just subscribe. Okay, just subscribe. Don't press the bell icon, just subscribe. That's all I'm asking of you. And thank you for watching my video.